What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another Euro 2020 fantasy video. In this one, we are rating your first draft. So I'm going to do another draft video for myself later on this week. I know a lot of people have been asking for that. But for this one, I'm going to talk through some of your drafts that you've sent to me on Twitter. There's quite a few people playing Limitless Matchday 2, but I have found someone that's thinking about playing it in Matchday 3. And it gives me the chance to talk about some different players that maybe I haven't considered, my thoughts on them, squad structure, captaincy, and all that good stuff. So if you enjoy it, please do give it a like, hit that subscribe button, and let's jump into it. Okay, so draft one is from the United dude. Now, I was going to use profile pictures from Twitter, but then some people had their real photos on there, and I wasn't sure whether I could do that, so I just went for my own logo. Classic Limitless Matchday 2 wildcard quarterfinal, which is a strategy I think a lot of people will use. And obviously, don't pay too much attention to where the captaincy sits right now, because I know when I'm messing around with my draft, I just leave it wherever it is. I don't necessarily always put it on the Italy player or whoever's playing in the first game. Overall, quite a few decent players in here. Lukaku, Kane, De Bruyne, obviously the big names. He's still got quite a bit of money in defence as well, Diaz and De Ligt as well. So I had a look at captains. So according to the tweet, they're Lukaku, Kane, Chiesa and Kante. Right, Kante for me is just not a captain. I talked about him on my Avoid video, I believe. He's got something like 3 attacking returns in 47 or 49 games. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. He should not be in your consideration for a captain. I would just remove him. Of course, if the rest of the players like Lukaku, Kane and Chiesa have all blanked, then sure, you could captain him, but he's not a very strong option. I think there's better options at his price. So he'd be a goner for me. Yilmaz up front, 8 million. Now, a lot of people think Turkey are going to do quite well in this, but they play Italy in the first game. I think they're unbeaten for 25 games now and a lot of clean sheets in qualifying. So I think for 8 million, there's definitely better ways to spend your money. Obviously, if you could find a bit extra to go up in price, there's lots of strikers. You've got Depay at 10 million. There's Lewandowski as well you could go for, but also just for a cheaper price, right? And Arnautovic for Austria should start as long as he's fit and available. There's plenty of options you could go for. Moreno at Spain, 6.5 million, etc. So I just think for this, because you're limitless in Matchday 2, I just wouldn't want to go for someone that's playing Italy. I know their match, obviously Matchday 3 is a little bit easier, but I just think there's better ways to spend your money. With De Bruyne, it's interesting. Just at the time I've started recording this, I've just seen a tweet saying that he might miss their opening game. So we need to keep an eye on that. We need to wait and see when that gets officially confirmed by Belgium. But that's not looking good for him. What's interesting is Hazard's 0.5 million cheaper. Nobody's talking about him. He should be on penalties for Belgium, by the way. He's also got a really good record for Belgium. We know what kind of a great player he is, especially obviously if you've watched him a lot for Chelsea. I know he's had quite a few injury concerns at Real Madrid, but if he's had like a bit of a break this season, but now he's up to full fitness and he's been playing since around March or April, I believe, then he's worth looking at. If you're looking at a double up in Belgian attack, then Lukaku and Hazard saves you a bit of money than Lukaku and De Bruyne. Obviously, if De Bruyne is not fit, then he's not a great pick anyway. Worth noting that obviously without him, that does kind of weaken the team quite a bit. Because I mean, De Bruyne is one of the best players in the world, but you'd still imagine that Belgium will do a good job against Russia, etc. in their group. So I wouldn't be too worried about De Bruyne missing out, but I do think Hazard's worth a look. For a little bit less money. Kjaer as well, you've got for Denmark against Finland. I mean, Denmark's fixtures are really good. They've got Finland Matchday 1 and Russia Matchday 3. And I just think for those fixtures, for 4.5 million, he's absolutely nailed on. Schmeichel and goal, etc. I think that's a really good pick. So I like him. He'll probably, if I'm looking for 4.5 million defenders, especially ones that are absolutely nailed on like he is, then yeah, I really like it. Definitely keep an eye on friendlies, right? Because I think sometimes you can get different pairings that might bring you more value, so less money, but also potentially more attack and returns. So, for example, in this team, you got De Ligt and Donnarumma, right, for Italy. So you're covering Italy defence and Netherlands defence for 11 million euro, of course, not pounds. But for 10.5 million, you could get Florenzi, so you've got a fullback instead. Should be a little bit more attacking than De Ligt. Obviously, that covers your Italy. And then Krul in goal for 4.5 million. Now, I've read all the comments. I've been looking on Twitter as well. I know that Krul is not absolutely nailed, and one of the reasons that he's been playing for the Netherlands is just due to Sillerton not being available. But that doesn't mean that he's definitely going to get straight back in the team, I would say. I know a lot of people have told me he definitely is, which is fair enough. But the beauty of this is we don't have to decide before seeing more games. There will be some friendlies to play. I should say as well, friendlies don't necessarily mean we're going to get all the information we want, right? If they have like 2 or 3 friendlies before and one player plays in all of them, then okay, that gives us the go-ahead that they're probably nailed on, as long as there's no other injuries to worry about. But of course, they could split it, right? They could play half the first team and one, half the first team and the other, and you're no real better off at knowing who is completely nailed on. So I'm not saying that De Ligt and Donnarumma is a bad choice, because for 11 million you cover 2 pretty good defences. But I'm just saying potentially you get a more attacking version for less money, but obviously there is a bit more risk, so you have to keep an eye on friendlies and stuff like that as well. Nago on the bench again, he's 4 million. I think you can do better than him. One of the reasons I didn't really talk about in the Avoid video, but for him in match day 1, he's playing on the last day. So even if you wanted to sub him in, let's say someone's only got 2 points in your team, do you want to sub someone on that's probably not going to start? Again, I think you can do better there. One of the ways to do that is probably to downgrade one of the big hitters over Kane, Lukaku, De Bruyne. Definitely look at changing Yilmaz. In my opinion, I just don't think Italy is a good game. And obviously you've got Diaz and De Ligt there. It's quite a lot of money in defence. So you could look at, I don't know, maybe downgrading Diaz to someone else. I think he's good for the Hungary game. But obviously in match day 3, they play France, Portugal. So if you're limitless match day 2, a wildcard quarter-final, then you might not want him playing against France. So Hungary's a good game. You can transfer him out, right? Obviously, we've not even thought about transfers in this. We're just looking at opening day squads. But it's maybe one of the ways you can get a bit more money into your team to upgrade Kante, whoever it might be. So yeah, I think the team's looking pretty good. I don't like Kante as an option. I just think you can do better than him. If it was in the Champions League version of the UEFA fantasy games, then great. There's ball recoveries and stuff like that. But they don't have that in this game, so I think he's a hard avoid. So yeah, overall good team, I would say. I think Kane against Croatia, and then obviously it's Czech Republic, I think, in the third game, obviously with Scotland in match day 2, which doesn't matter because you're limitless, using the limitless chip. But yeah, I think pretty solid. Really good cheap picks in Kier, Torres and Danea for Belgium. I just think Nago and Kante, you should probably try and find a way to upgrade, and obviously keep an eye on De Bruyne's fitness. So I've just seen how long I spoke for draft 1. It was quite a long time. So I won't go over loads of the players that are in each different draft, right? If the same players in another draft, then you've already got my thoughts on it. But I'll try and pick out different things from each different one. So with this one, Limitless Match Day 2, didn't say when wildcard was happening, but I guess keeping options open. And one of the points in the tweet was thinking about Insigne to Berardi, 6 million, but may not start. What about Chiesa? So I think it is between Chiesa and Berardi for that spot. I don't think anyone can 100% say. I will say most of the people I've spoken about that follow Italy, etc., are saying that Chiesa should get the nod. But obviously he is a bit cheaper than Insigne, but you do get nailed onness with him, so it depends. I think I quite like the midfield line you've got here. It's all mid-value players, so they're not super expensive like De Bruyne, Hazard, Bruno Fernandes, but they're not cheap either. So I think actually the cash has been spread around quite well here. Obviously, you then get into the defence where it's all cheap players, and you've still got Nago. So perhaps you could downgrade someone. I don't know about Insigne to Berardi, but I like the thinking you're going with. I think it's Klajzic, the forward for Austria. I don't think he is necessarily nailed on. Again, if you've got more insight, do leave a comment below. But looking at predicted lineups, it could just be Arnautovic there instead. And I know he hasn't completely joined up every time for Austria. I think there was issues coming back from China. But he should be available for Euro 2020. Should be in the squad. And he's also cheaper as well. So he's 7 instead of 7.5. I like the idea of targeting Austria, as in having an Austrian attacker, because it's North Macedonia and then Ukraine in match day 3. So for a cheaper striker than, say, your Depay, your Kanes, your Lukakus, etc., I do like the thinking, but Arnautovic could get the nod there. Whether they'll both play, I don't know. But Arnautovic 0.5 million cheaper, and he would probably be on penalties as well. So that is worth looking at. Mile, I think it is, the Danish fullback. So only, from what I've read, only just recently-ish got into the Danish team. So you could have Kjær, who is absolutely nailed on centre-back for 4.5 million, but getting a fullback potentially with a bit more attacking potential for the same price is not a bad option. But if you want to go for nailed on, let's just go for Kjær, the centre-back. Instead, you shouldn't have any issues there. Like I said, I like the kind of mid-value players in midfield. I don't really have an issue with any of them. I guess with Wijnaldum, he does usually play more of an advanced role for the Netherlands, but we just need to, again, keep an eye on friendlies. He's going to be saying that a lot. Klaassen could come in. How does that affect Wijnaldum? Does he play a bit deeper, etc.? Torres I quite like for Spain. Don't really have anything to add there. And Eriksen, I do quite like him as a pick, right, for Denmark, because I do really like their fixtures. Obviously, you've got Finland, and I believe it is it's going to be Russia as well. And if you're on Limitless Matchday 2, you skip their game against Belgium, so you can just take Eriksen out of the team. He is the talisman. He's on penalties. Not a bad captain, I would say, but obviously you've got Lukaku same day, so there's not really going to... you're probably not going to go for Eriksen over Lukaku, but as an option, I think he's quite good. I don't really have a massive issue. Like, I looked at the captain, so with the players you've got, it would be Insigne, then it would be Lukaku or Eriksen. They play on the same day. Then it's Wijnaldum, obviously, for the Netherlands, and then Klaassen for Austria, as long as he's going to play. And then it's Torres or Lewandowski. So you haven't necessarily, outside of Lukaku, got like another big hitter in there, like a Ronaldo or a Kane or someone like that. But you've got lots of decent-ish options. So as long as someone gets you something along the way, you should be looking okay. The only thing I would consider, and I'm not saying you absolutely have to do this, is the cash is spread obviously through the midfield. Could you maybe downgrade one of them, like an Eriksen? I think he's 9 million. Torres is 8. So is Wijnaldum. So like a 7 million or something like that, and just have a bit of extra cash to maybe put into the defence, because you've got... I don't really mind cheap defenders. Like, you've covered Belgium, Denmark, Spain pretty nicely there. And they should all play as well. Obviously, we'll have to wait for Torres, but I think most people think he's going to get the nod now. Ramos has been left out. So you do cover them quite well, but maybe you could get, I don't know, just a bit more of an attacking player from, someone like Belgium or Italy or whoever it might be. Again, I know you've covered Italy with a goalkeeper, but just something worth thinking about. And Wijndal for the Netherlands in defence, definitely need to see if he's nailed on in the friendlies, because a lot of people think that he could get left out. Blink going to left back. And obviously they're bringing De Vrij, I think it is. I've probably got that wrong as always. And De Ligt in centre-back as well. So that could mean that Wijndal misses out. I really like him for 4.5 if he definitely starts. But it's not a guarantee. But overall, pretty good. I do like the midfield. I don't have an issue with any of the players. I'm just wondering if you could maybe downgrade one and spread that cash elsewhere and just rethink your forward line, because Lewandowski and Lukaku are good, but Klaassen, I'm just not sure he's definitely going to start. But if anyone's got any other inside info on that, let us know in the comments below. Okay, so third draft, Limitless Matchday 2 Wildcard Game Week 3. I don't have any issues if people want to use all the chips in the group stage. I think it's a very aggressive play. You've just got to hope that you can get from the knockout round last 16 to quarterfinals without too many issues, because you only have 3 chances, I believe. So it's not a huge amount to change if like half your players get booted out of the tournament. Obviously, you'd hope to make a team that's not going to happen. So I don't mind this strategy. One thing I would say, if you go with this strategy, you absolutely need to just go for match day 1 fixtures only. You don't need to think anywhere outside of that, which I think has been done fairly well in general, thinking of the fixtures with this team. But there are some areas which I don't think players are either nailed or they're not necessarily great options for the price. One thing on Arnautovic, because I just spoke about him obviously with the last draft as well. So I've seen a tweet from someone on Twitter called FPL_Austria, spelt just like the country. If you haven't followed them already, make sure that you do. So here it says, Arnautovic Euro Fantasy News. He picked up a thigh injury a couple of weeks ago while playing in China. Currently isn't involved in full training with the Austria squad. He does individual work and won't feature versus England on Wednesday, but should be fine for the game after that, which is against Slovakia. So I think that's the 2 friendlies before the tournament starts. So as long as he comes through that game, he could be decent. Again, I don't know right now if anyone knows exactly who's nailed, but I do like him as a pick if he starts. Obviously, got Harry Kane there. Always love some England boys. But okay, here's some of the issues. I think Belgium are one of the best teams in the tournament for the group stages, etc. No attackers from there apart from Tielemans. I don't think he's the best option at 6.5 million at all. So that's maybe something to consider. I'm not saying you have to have a Belgian attacker, but just consider it. And obviously Castagna, like, he's obviously done really well for Leicester at times this season, but he is not nailed on by any stretch. So Belgium usually play a back three with wing backs, and the wing backs will probably be Meunier on the right, and then Thorgan Hazard, I believe, on the left. So there's not necessarily a place for Castagna. Again, if Friendlies tells us otherwise, then maybe we could start to consider him. But I think he has to be moved out. On the bench, you've got Moreno as well from Spain. He's not a player that's been in many drafts that I've seen. I haven't massively considered him. But I was looking at his stats. He's done really well this season. So 30 returns, 30 attacking returns for Villarreal. And I think he's got, if I read it right, he's got 8 returns in 8 games as well for Spain. He's only 6.5 million. So maybe he's someone that we should be considering a bit more. Spain are also favourites for the group as well. Windle, same as every single time I see him in drafts. We're going to have to wait and see if he's nailed. Rodriguez for Switzerland, I don't mind. I wonder if for 5.5 million, targeting Wales is the best option. I don't know. You could get potentially someone from a stronger... I mean, Switzerland are a decent enough defence, but I just wonder if you can maybe do a little bit better with the money. But he should be on penalties as well, right? Which is obviously massively interesting. If they get one against Wales, if your defender takes a penalty, that is huge. So I don't mind that pick. I'm just thinking, is that the best option? Considering you should absolutely only be focusing on matchday one fixtures. Like Wijnaldum again, Ukraine at home, it's not a bad fixture, but for 8 million, is there more that could be done with that money? That's something that I would definitely consider. And obviously you've got your striker against one of your defenders, Alioski. I don't usually mind that in a normal fantasy tournament, but I feel like you can probably just dodge that in this. Maybe just go for a double up on Denmark instead against Finland could be an option. I looked at captains. I think that is probably the weakest area of this team. So it's Chiesa, Eriksen. I guess Eriksen's not that bad. Then it's Kane or Arnautovic. They're playing on the same day. And then Moreno. So I don't know if that is, again, the best set of captains. That might be worth thinking about. And arguably, this is England's hardest game of the group. So I'm not saying ignore Harry Kane, because if we score, he will be involved. But the other 2 games are probably a little bit easier. So again, for his price, is there a better option? Could you get the money to go up to Cristiano Ronaldo against Hungary, for example? Lukaku again, if you wanted a Belgium option instead. I'm not saying completely ignore England at all. I would never want to say that. But this is probably the hardest game of the group, Croatia, and obviously the other one's Czech Republic and Scotland. Nothing against Scotland, of course, but I'm just looking at the odds. And the odds kind of favour Croatia as the hardest team that England are going to face. And yeah, Tielemans for 6.5. I don't particularly like. I think the way you spread the cash out through the defence, midfield, etc. isn't a bad option. But there's so many good forwards. I don't think spending 7 million is your... Basically, you've spent 7 million as your most expensive forward. And yet you've got no big hitting midfielder really there apart from Eriksen. So I think there's scope for redistributing the funds a little bit differently. But overall, not a bad start. Bernardo Silva's there against Hungary on the last day, so I guess you probably don't need Ronaldo. But yeah, I think there's probably scope there to get another big forward in there instead of just having Arnautovic and Moreno, who could be decent for the price. But I think for this, just targeting the match day 1 fixtures, get another good captain in there. So this draft, I liked for a few reasons. One, there's some players in there that I probably haven't talked about that much, but also I don't see being discussed a huge amount. And Limitless Match Day 3, not many people going for that strategy. So that is good to see then wildcard quarterfinal or later. So one of the players in here, so I've had to write some notes down. So it's Malinovsky. 7 million, Ukraine, plays Netherlands and Austria in match day 1 and 2. So it's maybe not the easiest fixtures, but there aren't a huge amount of absolutely nailed on and really good like goal scoring record, assist record, etc. for 7 million. So for a bit of a punt's probably not the right word, but given that he's not being talked about a lot, I think it's a nice. I think he's a nice option. So for club Atalanta, 20 returns in 36. His expected goal involvement per 90 minutes was 0.74. That's really, really, really high, right? That looks really good. If you can transform that into the national side, then he looks like a potential bargain for 7 million. 6 returns in 6 during qualifying. Obviously, that was a little bit of a while ago now, but still good. So yeah, I'm actually thinking about him too. I just don't know whether I want him for match day 1 against the Netherlands. But for a limitless match day 3, he's probably not a bad option for 7 million. I really don't think he is. Berardi for Italy, I'm not sure he's nailed. Again, we'll have to wait on friendlies. He is cheap. But yeah, I just don't think. Basically, I guess we are going to see the Italy team before the deadline, because the deadline is the time the match starts. So we will know the Italy lineup in advance. So as good as looking at friendlies are, we can also see exactly how Italy are going to line up. So one thing to do, if you've got players in here that aren't completely nailed, or you don't know if they are, is have a backup draft just in case the Berardi, etc. don't start. And I think most people, again, I've spoken to about Italy, don't think that's going to be the case. Berghuis for Netherlands, 7 million. Again, maybe another option at that kind of price point that's not being talked about enough. Really good involvement for club, just like Malinowski. 30 returns in 31 for Feyenoord. I had a look. He doesn't seem to have the greatest record for country yet. But for 7 million could be another, I don't know, underlying player that is just not being thought about, right? Underground player. I don't know what word I'm looking for, but you know what I mean. He's not being thought about by a lot of people. Bastoni for Italy is only 4.5 million. The problem is, it looks to me like it's going to be Bonucci absolutely nailed plus one other player. And that centre-back position. They've got quite a few options there. So I'm not 100% sure whether he's going to start. Now, again, we will get news before the Turkey game. And if he does, 4.5 million in that Italy defence is extremely cheap way of getting in there. But unless you absolutely know that he's definitely playing that game or going to be involved in the first 11, I just wouldn't go there. Again, you could just go to, I know I've mentioned him a lot, but Kjær at Denmark could just be a nice replacement there. Kimmich, I definitely don't like. I know, obviously, he's great. Germany should do pretty well, but you're using Limitless in match day 3, and that is when Germany play Hungary. Before that, they've got Portugal and France in the first game, then Portugal in the second. So they've got, that is the group of death. That's 2 really tough fixtures for Germany. And obviously, yes, a good team like Germany could do well. But I just think for 6 million, there are much better ways to spend your money. So I just don't like him. If you're definitely set on match day 3 Limitless, then you've got to play the fixtures for 1 and 2. And Germany arguably have got some of the worst fixtures going in France and Portugal. So I would definitely get rid of him. Lots of money on goalkeepers. Again, don't necessarily think it's a bad move because, to be honest, apart from Bastoni and Berardi, who we're not sure about, I think the money's pretty well spent. Of course, Wijndal again for Netherlands. If he's not going to start, you can just swap into another 4.5. But the money's actually spread really well as long as those 7 million midfielders come through for you in match day 1 and 2. Up front, Lukaku and Kane like it, and Moreno, who already spoke about, looks decent as well. So overall good. Just think about those Italy players. Are there different players you can go for instead, and how are you going to get the money for them as well? Kimmich out is definitely something that I would think about, and maybe just downgrade one of the goalkeepers. There is a 4 million playing goalkeeper for Finland, of course, which I'm not going to try and pronounce now. Heretsky? I don't even think that's how you pronounce it. But anyway, he might be an option that unlocks a lot of cash, getting rid of Courtois or Donnarumma that you could then spend elsewhere. But overall, I like it. And also, it's a bit different. Match day 3 Limitless. Malinowski and Berghuis in midfield as well. Decent. So that is it for this one. Thank you for watching. If you found it useful, please do give it a like and hit that subscribe button. Thank you to everybody that sent in drafts for this video to me on Twitter. I know obviously I couldn't go through every single one. There was like hundreds that were sent to me. But I tried to pick a few with different players in, so I got to talk about a few different options that maybe you're considering or you haven't considered yet. And I think most of the info was correct. I've done a lot of research on this. So if there is anything majorly that I've missed or something like that, especially to do with a lineup, then please do leave a comment below. I know that there are some positions in some teams that aren't absolutely nailed. It's a bit like England, right? We all know Harry Kane's going to play up front, but we're not quite sure who are going to play as the wide forwards, the fullbacks, etc. And the friendlies, I know I keep banging on about it, but they should give us a good indication of that. So yeah, hopefully it was all good. And thanks for sending your drafts. Tomorrow I have another video. I'll do an updated draft video for my own on Thursday as well. So plenty more content to come. Make sure you've hit that subscribe button and the like button if you've enjoyed it. And I'll catch you again tomorrow.